Evie, you're muted.
How's that? So sorry about that, folks. FRAC is really pleased to host this second in a monthly series of webinars with our partner Propel to share the results of ongoing survey research on the experiences of SNAP customers during COVID-19. Propel's Fresh EBT app has 4 million customers who use it to track their SNAP and WIC benefits and get access to additional information and resources. Particularly during this time of social distancing, Propel's surveys of its customers are providing an additional point of access and insight to the depth of hardship that people are experiencing in COVID-19. You know, we look at some other surveys. This one's of particular interest because it is a survey of SNAP participants as opposed to just the broader public overall. And I think with that, I'm going to turn this to Stacy Taylor. Stacy leads this work at Propel. She heads up their policy and partnerships. And Stacy, let's turn it to you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Ellen, and thanks to you all for taking time to chat today. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful to have the opportunity to connect and to share what we've learned in these surveys. And as Ellen said, this is a complement to the work and to the conversations you all are having every day. And so I'm happy to share it, happy to have a conversation, and happy for your feedback and input as we continue this monthly series. We will focus on the results from our September survey today. Nomi, we can go to the next slide, please. So a quick refresh that the survey is shared through the app, Fresh EBT. It appears to a randomly select group of the 4 million households using Fresh EBT across the country, and individuals can opt into taking the survey. We shared this survey the first 2 weeks of September, and the results today are based on responses from 2,865 respondents in that time period. The next slide, please. The findings are familiar. These are probably the same things you were hearing in your work, reading in media, and finding through other research studies. We really want to take the time to amplify and elevate the stories that we're hearing along these themes. So we see that there is no slack to continue to weather this crisis. It is challenging to get through the months, and the pressure continues to build. We are hearing that Fresh EBT customers are requesting cash support. Lots of policies and programs have been proposed. Many have been executed and expired, and we're hearing in many different ways that cash support is essential right now. We're hearing that households are spending resources supporting one another, relying on friends and family and community, and supporting friends and family and community, and that federal interventions have made a difference. This is echoing some of the trend data we went through in the last webinar, which we recorded and can share out. If you missed it or would like to see that data, just let me know. But we see, again, that federal interventions have made a difference, but many have expired or are expiring without intervention from policymakers. So we'll dig into each of these on the next slide. There is no slack, and households are being forced into extreme measures to get through the month. We came to this through a handful of survey questions. So we asked respondents, in the past 30 days, what strategies have you used to get through the month? And 45% reported eating less, 35% skipped meals, 43% acknowledged that they may have had to pay a fee, but delayed or skipped on a bill. 32% visited a food pantry, and many reported other services or products that they skipped on, including prescription medication. We also asked households about access to cash and to flexible resources. Over 50% had less than $25, at the time of taking the survey, again, within the first 2 weeks of the month, over 75% less than $99. Families reported using a credit or borrowing money to pay for everyday expenses, not luxury expenses, just expenses to get through the month. And over 75% report not having what they need at home, like food, household products, and cleaning supplies. On the next slide, I want to take this opportunity to pass the microphone. We have a valued partner who offers some advice and some input into, we've worked hard and talked a bit about amplifying and elevating the voices of SNAP households, but really want to take this opportunity to really pass the microphone to individuals who responded to this survey without exposing families, but sharing their words. So on the next slide, we heard from Jimmy in Michigan. I have had to borrow money from relatives to make ends meet. I have also had to pawn items to pay bills, such as my car and gas for my car, so I can continue to work. Another Fresh EBT user said, it's a disaster. I have 3 young kids and all 3 are in school, but because school is not open, I can't work because my kids are in homeschool. I need to be there to help or assist them on the computer. My kids are 12, 6, and 5 years old, so it's hard trying to get at least a part-time job, and my expenses of food are so much more expensive. Everything is much more expensive at the stores. I'm not sure how I'm going to continue hanging in this situation anymore. And another user, I have $2,500 per month in bills. My rent alone is $1,100. Now I'm collecting $107, $96 after taxes and unemployment. My car needs repairs due to high water from Hurricane Laura. It's been a depressing and stressful situation for me and for the landlord. On the next slide. Here we focus on, we asked households responding to the survey, what supports would be most helpful, and heard loud and clear, help with rent, help with utilities, and food assistance. Some other potential supports came through as well, but at much lower rates. Echoing the call for rent and utility support, we know that over 75% report that the pandemic has caused them to fall behind in rent, mortgage, or utilities. And when we ask about how past cash assistance has been used, over 80% who received economic impact payments or stimulus payments consistently report using those payments to cover rent or bills. And again, on the next slide, the direct words of households who responded to the survey who had been receiving pandemic unemployment compensation. One way to understand how cash assistance is helpful is to hear from families for whom those benefits have expired. We had one person respond, it's been extremely tough. The $600 was what was getting me by, helping me to pay bills and give my 2 children the things they need without worrying about going without in other ways, or not being able to make ends meet or pay my bills for the month. Since it ended, I have barely been able to get by. We have been struggling immensely, and the little bit of money that I had saved for emergencies is now gone. My daughter's 7th birthday is today, and I wasn't even able to get her anything. My son's is next month, and will probably be the same, and I'm extremely scared that I won't be able to give them a Christmas either. The $600 federal supplement was a godsend. It literally made it somewhat possible to get by and pay our bills and be able to provide our child with school uniforms and other necessities. When it ended, we were evicted and were able to barely borrow enough to get into a new place, and then Hurricane Laura hit and our lives and financial situation went from bad to worse. We are now bouncing between the only shelter available, family, and hotels when we're able to get enough funds together. My 5-year-old is starting to develop anxiety-related issues and other noticeable psychological damage from the constant stress and uncertainty. And on the next slide, we asked households responding to the survey, in addition or separate from government benefits, what other supports have you received or offered during the pandemic? And we heard that twice as many respondents reported receiving support from family or friends as compared to nonprofit or religious organizations, community-based organizations. The percents here seem to also reflect, we saw about 30% of households responded using food pantries or food resources. So if we combine the nonprofit or charitable and religious organizations here, those seem to match up a bit, though of course wording in questions matters, and so we read those with that lens. On the next slide, we really see how families are generously supporting one another, and I think the individuals here really are important to listen to. Tamara in California told us, we emptied our savings account to help my family. Damika in Georgia said, my aunt helped me when my bills fell behind because some days I wasn't able to work because I couldn't find a sitter. Well, if we have it, we share it with our neighbors who struggle, and they do the same. From John in West Virginia. And Cynthia in Florida says, I've had to rely on friends and family this entire time, and I imagine it has put a strain on their financial situations. And Christine in Oregon says, I've had to give money to my mom so she can pay her mortgage. I'm full dread about losing all of my money to it. On the next slide. We, in the last webinar, spent a bit more time on trends and how federal interventions seem to impact those trends related to housing or economic insecurity or access to various supports. And we see the data in this survey echo that as well, that federal interventions have made a difference, but more is needed, especially to cover everyday expenses like rent, utilities, and food. But the data did show that fewer eligible families who got PEBT reported skipping meals or relying on others. So if you received PEBT, you were less likely to have to skip a meal. Similarly, fewer eligible families who got SNAP, extra SNAP, reported relying on others for meals. Again, echoing that the increase in SNAP in the form of the emergency allotment payment and PEBT had a positive impact for families. On the next slide, we asked families, what was your experience with government benefits? And we saw every response you could imagine: easy and efficient, miserable, horrible, complicated, terrible, could have been better, not the best, not the worst. And on the next slide, some folks who elaborated, Champagne in Pennsylvania said, my experience has been what I expected. It's hard to apply and search for different things to help during the pandemic process. Michelle in California says, we recently, within the last couple of weeks, started getting unemployment benefits and has alleviated a lot of stress for the whole family. SNAP has been a lifesaver as well. I don't know how we could have lived through this pandemic without SNAP. Amanda in Kentucky says, they did nothing. I was already receiving the maximum benefits allowed. And Kayana in North Carolina, it was a very frustrating experience due to the fact that everywhere was shut down. So you have to call and wait on phone for hours to talk to a representative at a time to get hung up on. Danae in Georgia says, I've been on the SNAP program before the pandemic. Getting through to the DHS office is absolutely excruciatingly hard because of the whole time and the amount of options you have to go through with the automated system. And Anne in California wrote, thankful experience, which was simple and expedited. On the next slide, please. We were also able to analyze the data to explore any racial disparities and saw that racial disparities continue and reflect the racial disparities that other research and conversations have highlighted. So the wealth and income inequality disparities are well documented and reflected in this data as well. We saw that more Black households reported borrowing money or using credit for expenses. More Black households reported not having or running low on essential household needs. and more Black and Latinx households are looking for work as compared to white households. We also saw disparities in access of benefits. So more white households reported getting their economic impact payment or stimulus checks as compared to Black and Latinx households, and more qualifying Black households reported not having yet received PEBT as compared to Latinx and white households. On the next slide. Finally, we asked directly, well, if you could advise policymakers, what would you say? Amanda in Florida said, please cut the pay of utility and rent till December. We are still having a lot of trouble getting on our feet. Brooks in Louisiana wrote, help with utilities and food. Being home has made these go up. So we're seeing a lot of trends around utilities, food assistance, rent assistance. Also, language around get me back on my feet, time to get back on my feet. April in Tennessee wrote, a second stimulus check would get me back on my feet. And Rebecca in West Virginia wrote, we need more stamps to feed our kids. That's what I worry about. We run out of food and pantries only help once a month and they hardly have anything to give. On the next slide, we transition a little away from the survey just to share our experiences with Fresh EBT. So through the COVID Help Center and Benefits Info Center that we run on Fresh EBT, we get to hear a little bit about trends and what households using Fresh EBT are thinking about. And PEBT has been the most frequently asked question. Is it coming again? When can I expect it? How do I get information? Can I rely on this? We also continue to hear that the economic impact payment has not been received by all families yet. So about 75% of households using Fresh EBT have reported not yet having received the stimulus check and are doing the last push now prior to October 15th that I know many of you all are working on as well. And then finally, as the word gets around about the CDC eviction moratorium, we're receiving questions about that as well. How do I communicate this to my landlord? How am I eligible? And have been connecting folks to those resources as well. So I will pause now and see if there are questions that we can discuss today. We also have a few questions for you all to continue to iterate on and improve the way we share this information in the future. So would really appreciate you all taking just a minute or two to fill those out. And then on the next slide, or the last slide, is my contact information. So please feel free to reach out with additional questions, feedback, input, conversation, and these slides will be shared after as well.
Stacy, thanks so much for that very quick review of a lot of information. You really distilled it down. While people are filling out the polling question, which again you can find in the Q&A, we'll be interested in what your answers are, but I'm glad that Stacy and Propel are interested in hearing from you about it. We do have a question about whether or not you have any information about participants in temporary assistance for needy families program. Now, I know that the Fresh EBT app allows for people to access information about their WIC and their EBT cases. I don't know if you have that similar relationship with respect to TANF, or whether there's a way of knowing among the survey participants which of them might be getting help through TANF.
That is an excellent question. We have not collected that information connected to the survey. So we know that everyone who completed the survey is using Fresh EBT. And in order to use Fresh EBT, a household is using an EBT card. In every state, households receive their SNAP benefits through their EBT card, and in many states, most states, many households also receive or have the option to receive their cash welfare or TANF benefits on an EBT card as well. So many families can use Fresh EBT to check their cash benefit or their TANF benefit through Fresh EBT, though that is not true for every single household using Fresh EBT. but unfortunately I have not collected that data connected to the survey data. So I can't say what percentage of respondents are also receiving TANF benefit. So certainly some are, probably many.
No, thank you for that. And as people fill out the survey, I'm just wondering, even as you're asking for people to prioritize what else they would like you to be asking about and formatting things, what are you learning about how to ask survey questions as you continue to do this survey and have been doing it now for several months? And I know that you have a history with the Fresh EBT app of trying to improve that app, and so you tapped your customers before. But are you learning things that maybe we ought to keep in mind about how to ask questions about the policy and that might be?
Ellen, I hate to interrupt, but I think that your finger might be on the microphone, and I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
Okay, sorry about that. Is that different now?
It is.
Yeah, that's better, thanks.
So as Stacy, as you continue these surveys, are there any lessons learned about the best way to word some of these questions to get at people's experiences? A lot of us live in a very wonky policy world, but you seem to be able to ask the questions in a way that's eliciting answers that people, feel comfortable in giving to you.
Yes, thanks, Ellen. Let me reflect on that for a second. So I think we try to do a few different things. One is we know folks are answering, because the survey is offered through Fresh EBT, we know that most folks or everyone accessing it is accessing it on their phone and typing with their thumbs. So we try to ask a combination of multiple choice and open-ended questions. We ensure that every question is optional, so that if it's not relevant or if it's not the right time or if it's not something somebody wants to share, they can just move on and share the information that they would like to share. We try to keep the questions as brief as possible so that they're sort of easy to digest, read on a small screen, and respond to quickly. And we do like to leave space for open-ended questions, but we try to keep those to a minimum as we're asking about them. And then we keep our descriptions of policies and programs simplified, right? So we'll use, rather than using the sort of technical name, we'll use a common name when we're referring to a program or policy, and then can add a description to make sure that the respondent is talking about the same program that we think we're asking about. And then we iterate on it. So we try to learn each time and make it better the next time.
Great. So, Stacy, I know in your poll, which we hope people will fill out and give to you in the Q&A, you're asking for people about whether they want you to prioritize getting short-form testimonials versus long-form stories and videos. Can you tell us a little bit about what a long-form story or video might look like? I think the short-form testimonials are more what we heard today.
That's right. So today I would say these were all short-form testimonials. So this is a sort of a short text box. The long-form or videos would be another option for respondents. So there are easily accessible technologies where someone, instead of completing the survey or responding to a question by typing answers, can elect to record a video of themselves on their phone. I was trying to figure out if I could actually show one today, but I didn't overcome the technology in time. But that would be the difference, or in sort of having a conversation and recording the response to make to give opportunity sort of for a fuller story or a fuller anecdote, in addition to sort of one or two sentences in response to questions.
Oh, that's great. And it looks like we've got some poll results. I don't know if you can see them, Stacy.
I can. Yes, thank you.
And I don't know if you're surprised by the results. It looks like people are very interested in data. And maybe you remember exactly the way these questions were worded, but that seems the top two seem to be very strong interest. And the webinar seems to be a format. Of course, they haven't seen your blog yet, so this may be one where once they see your blog, and you do have that coming fairly soon, Stacy?
Yes. Yes, very soon we'll get that up. We decided to do a little bit of reformatting, so it's taking a little longer than I thought. But it's coming soon. But
we'll make sure that everybody knows about that. So I hope that's helpful input from people about what they would like, what they would be, liking to see. Certainly the top line thing that caught our attention is the data, because it very much corroborates, I think, what anecdotal information we're getting, what reports we're getting from other surveys, the direction that you're finding. But I think you've given it another lens, and you're also keeping up very much in time. I know that we're just about done with September, but I'm struck that you're already able to share the September results with us, in the same month that you've got them. So with that, I think I'm going to thank you and turn to Nomi to close this out. And
Ellen, I see two questions in the Q&A, which I can answer very quickly.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So one is, can we share the survey results through our social media platforms? Yes, absolutely. Please share however is helpful for you. That's one of the reasons we want to get the blog post up, is if it's helpful to link to that or to be able to get the data. We'll also be sure to share this presentation so you can find all of that information as well. And don't hesitate to email me if I can provide any additional resources there. And then a question about what exactly is Fresh EBT. And again, there's a more detailed explanation of this in our first webinar, if that's helpful to go back to. But Fresh EBT is a free app that can be downloaded from any app store. And it's a financial services tool for households using an EBT card. So households in all 50 states can download and log into Fresh EBT to see their up-to-date EBT balance information, which is primarily SNAP, but also some cash benefits dispersed through an EBT card. And then we use that as a point in time to share relevant information to help to improve financial health, whether that be information about how benefits are changing in response to COVID, or connections to local utility providers that offer utility discounts. Again, happy to provide more information about that offline as well.
Stacy, thanks so much, and thanks for spotting those Q&A that I missed. So again, thank you, Stacy, and to Propel for this information. Thank you to really, frankly, your customers who shared their insights, because that helps us get a fuller picture. And Nomi, I think I'm going to turn it to you.
Yes, thank you everybody for joining us. This is the second one in a series. As we get more results, we're hoping to share them with you all. So stay tuned for the follow-up email and keep your eyes peeled for the next opportunity to hear more results from Propel and their Fresh EBT surveys. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you.